you offered any evidence to support this need that you're describing for the executive order, or are you really arguing that we can't even ask about whether there's evidence because this decision is not reviewable? Has the government pointed to any evidence connecting these countries with terrorism? Why should we be hearing this now if it sounds like you're trying to say you're going to present other evidence later? Is that in the record? The president is not applying any specific criteria from Congress here, is he?
Okay, the Obama-appointed appeals court judge, Michelle Friedland, lobbed tough questions at the Justice Department attorneys. Judge Friedland is one of the 3 judges deciding the case, and in an unusual move, the president publicly commented as the judges continued to weigh whether or not his executive order is constitutional. The president reacting today, saying the judges are getting too political.
I listened to a panel of judges, and I'll comment on that. I will not comment on the statements made by certainly one judge. But I have to be honest.
To be clear, we don't know if the one judge the president is referring to is the one appointed by President Obama. Let's bring in American Center for Law and Justice's Jordan Sekulow. You say that the judges are getting too political. What's your proof?
That's right. Well, the question about evidence right there, Liz, that you played that whole line of questioning from Judge Friedland about evidence, that has nothing to do in this stage of the case when you're talking about a temporary restraining order and a stay and injunctions. This is about, again, this is procedural. We are not to the merit stage of the case. And even then, I told you I was nervous about the Ninth Circuit. That's why. Even when you get to the merits of this case, they don't have to show evidence when it comes to national security when the president has a clear constitutional and statutory authority. So he's got the Constitution on his side and the Immigration and Nationality Act on his side that allows him to act. He doesn't have to prove to this judge or the Ninth Circuit that this is that there's a national security threat or what evidence is there
and Jordan,
for this.
Hang on. What feels so,
again,
stay with me, Jordan, hang on. Jordan, what's so disturbing sometimes is to the people out there who are members of victims' families of terror or any attack of that nature. They feel like they're rounding errors. They feel like they're being overlooked. And for the judge to ask for evidence when clearly the evidence has been out there by the federal government itself, I mean, what did you make of that line of questioning?
No, I think it was disrespectful, it's wrong, and it was also to throw the attorney off. I don't think that the Department of Justice attorney here, who is a career attorney, not a political appointee, did an exceptional job. He was asked a direct question that could have shut that judge down. When she said, do you have evidence, he could have said, you know, there's obvious evidence, but the president has the authority. Remember, she asked that, does the president have the authority to do this without our review? And the answer to that, he paused for a minute. He shouldn't have paused. The answer, yes. The president has this authority under the Constitution and under the Immigration and Nationality Act.
Okay, Jordan.
He didn't do that. So that led her into that, beating him up over that line of questioning over evidence and percentages. We got the Muslim ban
stay on this.
going
Wait,
in
hang
there.
on a second. Hang on, Jordan.
The establishment clause got brought up. I mean, this was out of control for procedural.
Jordan, all right. Judge Napolitano says many of the judge's questions were not relevant. This is what you and I are talking about. I'm not sure, Jordan, if you can't hear me in your ear, but I'm trying to get the conversation going because we want to hit a lot of topics with you because you're a terrific guest. Let's listen to what Judge Napolitano said about what you're saying. It's not relevant what these questions were, and I want your response. Take a listen.
The president has a very legitimate complaint that the judges sounded political. You and I heard a lot of political questions, like, did the president conduct any studies before he singled out these 7 countries? That's irrelevant. It doesn't matter how he chose these seven countries, because the Constitution gives the president the sole authority to make foreign policy, and Congress has given the president the sole ability to suspend immigration from whatever countries he wants. I did shake my head when these judges went to the merits, the wisdom of what President Trump did. That is not their job. We heard questions that were political. Well, isn't it true that this is a Muslim ban? Well, A, that's not true. B, it's the wrong question. It's an improper question to ask. Did the Obama State Department agree that these 7 countries are dangerous? Again, wrong question to ask. The answer is irrelevant to whether or not the president properly exercised his authority or whether this judge in Seattle properly interfered with him.
Do you agree? What do you think, Jordan?
I agree absolutely. I mean, the judge, he brought up there the political question, there's a doctrine where the courts are supposed to stay out of policy making. They can not like a policy, but their job is to decide whether that policy is legal and constitutional on its face and as it's applied. Right now, we only really know on its face because it wasn't really able to go into effect. They're not supposed to decide whether they like it or not. And that's what you heard from the judges, and that is a problem with the Ninth Circuit. We knew going into this that would be a problem for the Trump administration throughout their time in the Ninth Circuit. And now with this delay, Liz, of not getting an opinion, we're wondering, is it because there's a dissenter here, maybe Judge Clifton, who did push back on some of that questioning? He was the George W. Bush appointee. Or are they going to write, as the Ninth Circuit loves to do, a more results-oriented opinion that has little to do with the temporary restraining order and a lot to do with the policy that they obviously had a lot of animus towards? There's still hope, by the way, Liz, still hope that with all of that language and oral argument that they find that the state just could not prove that they had standing to actually bring this. I mean, that's our kind of only hope to hold on to get a favorable decision out of these three judges.
All right, Jordan, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.